Hello everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind, and I'm here on another episode to talk to you about mock drafts. I'm going to be going through a lot of mock drafts leading up to the draft. Today, we're going to cover another one. Today, it's going to be the Ringer this time. We already covered, I believe it was the Bleacher Report, which had a kind of a crossover mock draft kind of thing going on with the NBA itself. And so today, we're going to be covering Kyle Mann and Danny Chow's uh, you know, the ringer, I guess. So let's pull that up right away. So without a further ado, we're going to start right here. We're just going to go through these mock drafts. And essentially, I'm going to give my thoughts as to what I think it should be, if I agree with their assessment. And here and there, I'm going to kind of give my thoughts on their comps and whatnot. May not go through it all, but yeah. Of course, one of the things I like about the Ringer is that they do go through their grades after, and they also have their big board. The big board is obviously going to be different than their mock draft. I will give my big board closer to the draft itself. I'm going to focus today on essentially going over their mock draft. So let's get into it. Dallas Mavericks have the first overall pick, of course, and guess what? They're going to pick Cooper Flag. That makes a lot of sense. Now, I know there are some people out there talking all sorts of craziness saying that, well, you know what, it's Cooper Flag, but, Giannis this, Giannis that. You take Cooper Flag, you keep it moving. Simple. Very simple. If you get Giannis, you have to trade Cooper Flag and AD, which to me seems like a lot to give up because AD is still at least bare minimum when healthy, top 10 player in the NBA, more than likely. He's definitely a perennial defensive player of the year candidate. And so at that point, you're giving up a lot to get someone who has, say, 3 years that you can guarantee that you're going to have under contract. Also, 3 years that is going to be, still in his prime. After that, we don't know. So we will see. So let's just go through it. Of course, he talks about it. You're going to have to give me a minute to process is what he says. The stats are the stats. I mean, at this point, you should know who Cooper Flag is if you've been following this NBA draft, of course. So, yeah. So I'm going to just go through. I do agree with the ridiculous upside. I do agree with the shot blocking, the playmaking, positional versatility. In my opinion, a lot of these people are just a little bit too low on his ultimate upside. They'll say high upside, but they don't want to say, but then they'll compare him to Andre Karolinko. And to me, that's not really the highest upside type guy. He was the big prize. Obviously, Dallas Mavericks got it. So yeah, I'm gonna just skip through all the information that they have going here. I'm just gonna focus on the player comp. Andre Karolinko, of course, is gonna come up. Don't necessarily agree with this comp, but I do understand from a defensive side, he has a lot of defensive potential. But this guy just screams just motor. I have not seen very many people process the game like him at this stage, just a couple. And not everyone who has processed the game like him has panned out thus far with their career or even beyond, even if their career is done. So he is definitely one of the best prospects that I've ever seen in the NBA in the past, at least decade for sure, maybe even 15 years. Jason Tatum, of course, Duke to Duke for sure. Let's see, they have Nicholas Batum. I don't know if I agree with that, but I do understand the Scottie Pippen comps come from his defensive upside. So, I'm not going to focus too heavily on ripping someone or praising someone for their comps, but I do agree that he is most likely the right selection here. Okay, we go on to the Spurs. I've said it before, if the Spurs keep the pick, I know a lot of people are saying that they are set on Dylan Harper. That might be the case. He is probably, in terms of having a big board, he is the best talent. Is he the right fit? And is the gap between him and Ace Bailey that much? I know there are some people, one of my co-hosts really believes in Ace Bailey over Dylan Harper, but I think that the consensus would say that the floor of Dylan Harper is much higher. And so for that reason, he has the footwork, he has the craft, he has the handle, all these types of things. Yes, Ace has his auntie, he was done quite well, but it's different than getting it, good old home cooking, as they say. Um, but yeah, so Dylan Harper, second pick. I understand it. I would probably swap the two, or potentially. I mean, really, it comes down to it is that are the Spurs trading this pick or not? Because if they end up trading the pick to go get Giannis, for example, well, watch out NBA. And then in that case, yes, Dylan Harper would probably go to the Bucks, over Ace Bailey. Um, Interesting. So he is exactly where I'm going with. Oh, I should actually focus a little bit on these. I don't know if I agree with him playing like his with his older brother, I should say, not a younger brother. Um, but I have heard the comparisons between him and his dad. I know people have said like a little bit of Cade mixed with a little bit of Harden. Um, he definitely can defend a little bit at the next level, play makes, all that good stuff. I like it, but I don't love the fit here. But yeah, going along to Philly, if Ace Bailey is there, I think Philly takes him, and I agree with them there that Trey Johnson is another one that they could take. Malawach is also potentially, if they wanted to reach, it would be a reach here, but if they wanted to reach, Malawach would actually potentially work here. Um, the thing that I find that would be interesting about Malawach here would be, of course, it depends on Embiid's health. But if they trust Embiid's health, then they're going to look for a long-term solution for, of course, their other guy. That being uh, Mr. Podcast PG-13. And if that is the case, obviously Ace makes the most amount of sense. Now, the other thing they may be thinking is, of course, who's the easier one to trade? Embiid with bad knees or the other guy. The other guy is probably going to be easier to trade. But yeah, either way, I think that the best thing that Philly can do is kind of continue to build two shadow teams, or kind of two teams, if you will. They have their main squad, and then they have their backup squad just in case. So they have the Jared McCain, they still have Maxey, and potentially Ace Bailey. In my opinion, that is really, really one heck of an interesting long-term future that they have there. Okay, we move along. Charlotte Hornets. Um, Ace Bailey could work here, but ultimately, I think that this is the first real Malawatch destination. I know a lot of people are interested in Malawatch, and I say that because of Mark Williams. Now, do I think that they're going to smooth things over with Mark Williams? Yes. And if that's the case, they need perimeter defense. And so VJ Edgecombe to this core, I think he gives him a punch. I think he also has the athleticism, which frankly, I think a lot of people were muted on his athletic abilities, and I think the combine proved that differently, especially for those who didn't watch every single one of his games. I think it's just really easy to see that he had that athletic juice to punch up. I mean, it's incredible, honestly. And I forgot to go. Sorry about this, but I did forget to go through the Ace Bailey comps. So they said Michael Porter Jr. Rudy Gay is an interesting and funny one. I think it's just mainly funny because I know that he's gotten flack for his shot selection. So from the shot selection standpoint, fair enough. It's a little harsh as a Raptors fan, but at the same time, yeah, I think that somewhere between Rashard Lewis and KD, those are like your like highest of high, 99th percentile. Everything works out, hits all of the potential markers and pathways that he needs to get to maximize his play. And on the low end, you're seeing like a Rashard Lewis, or a Rudy Gay, and that's going to be a productive player. So yeah, VJ Edgecombe just to kind of keep it a buck and round it out. So okay, Victor Oladipo. I have heard this comp before. It was actually meant as an insult. I don't agree with it as an insult because again, All Star, All NBA, All Defense, all in 1 year. That's the peak. That's a pretty darn good player. So yeah, Chris Dunn is a little bit. I don't know if I agree with that. And while I do think that he has some playmaking, um, I guess they're talking about Derek White from a defensive standpoint, but I'd actually compare him closer. Maybe not quite the level of Cason Wallace and Drew Holiday, but like maybe the next tier down in terms of being a point of attack defender. Maybe closer to like an Alex Caruso from that standpoint. I think he's going to be incredible. So we move along to the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz, I think they are just looking for someone to fit their roster. Colin Knippel could fit there. I have seen this. I don't think it's an automatic that he goes there. I think if Trey Johnson is still around at this point, they might just play Trey Johnson, although it depends on what they see for Keontae George. Keontae George is a bit of a combo guard. They're probably going to move off Colin Sexton this year. And so do they see, who do they see as being the primary? Who do they see as being the secondary guy? I think Trey Johnson could work there, but if not, Colin Knippel, interesting pick for the Utah Jazz. I don't hate it. Again, I think that they just want to, keep it moving. I don't like these comps. I kind of these guys are from Boston, so I will say that. But Luke Kennard, Gordon Hayward, I can see the Hayward comp a little bit in the sense that he can do a little bit of everything. Just like with the Grady thing, it's like he's not just a shooter. But at the same time, I don't think that Knippel is neither the size of Gordon Hayward, and I don't think that he plays defense like Gordon Hayward in his prime. Wally Szczerbiak is interesting, and Evan Fournier. I think that these are just throwing out there in terms of the comp. I know that they're saying 6'7". I don't. I think he measured in 6'5" or something like that. So yeah, one of the biggest combine winners actually was VJ. A lot of people said that he was 6'3", 6'2", said that he didn't have this and that. And for someone who was dogged a lot, he actually showed up. He was basically the legit, almost maybe a quarter of an inch shorter than 6'5". He was, he shrunk the least of a lot of people, whereas Dylan Harper was 6'6" to 6'7", and then of course after the measurements, it's like, oh, he's like 6'4" and a little bit, 6'4" and some change or whatever. So yeah. Next we go on to of course, the Washington Wizards. The Wizards of Waverly Place. The Wizards, of course, did not and probably are not super happy with with how things ended up for them in the lottery. Now, that's okay. To me, Malawach is interesting for a number of reasons. I think he has the size, he has the leg strength. His body will continue to fill out. The question is can he become more agile and become more flexible? The flexibility is not bad, but if he can improve that, I think that there is some real defensive upside as a defensive anchor. Right now, I do think that his defense is a little bit overstated. I think while he is raw offensively, I think he has a lot of potential on offense. I mean, if you go back on Basketball Rewind, you will see that we talked about him being potentially a future variation of Miles Turner. And I think that that could be the case. As a Raptor, if he ended up getting selected by the Raptor, would be interesting. But he's someone where, do I see him on Washington? Maybe, maybe not. I think that if they can find their Trey Johnson, essentially their Jordan Poole replacement, perfect destination here. But the other person who I think fits next to the center that they just got in Alexander Sarr, or if you see him as a power forward, either way, say they're interchangeable, would be Derek Queen. And that's where I see Derek Queen going. I know it's a little rich for Derek Queen for some people, but I think that he plays well enough, and this is the perfect destination for Derek Queen, because if you have the right team composition already, I think it might be plug and play. They compare him. I don't like these comparisons. I'm going to ignore the middle one, but I'm going to say like they're comparing him to Khalil Ware. I just don't see him as offensively gifted and ready to go as a second year college player and all that type of stuff. I like the idea of like how he was outlining right here is that you have a lot of long gangly arms and there's just a very long funky team. And there's some truth to that. It is interesting, and originally there's one variation in my mind where he could end up here, so I wouldn't quite knock this out of here right away. At the same time, It's not a done deal. Jeremiah Fears is the next one. Now, this one is interesting. Now, personally, I would have Fears going to Brooklyn, and I think that they wouldn't mind if they have to tank another year, but also they have the time to wait for Fears to kind of catch up in terms of his body. I think he measured in 182, 185, soaking wet. He needs to gain some strength. He gets to the rim a lot. I like a lot of what he does. He probably is the best handling guard slash player in the entire class, without question. But with that being said, do I see him going to New Orleans? No, that's why I see him going to Brooklyn. Again, there's just too many spots for Trey Johnson to go to that make too much sense for me to just say, yeah, he's gonna fall all the way to 8. I doubt it. Um, but if he does fall to 8, the Nets will definitely take him. I think the Pelicans could take Malawatch. At the same time, is he the right big to pair next to Misi? No. Are they going to draft someone who would be a backup big with a basically a lottery pick? Probably not. I mean, you're hoping that someone in the lottery, especially the high end of the lottery, top 10, you're usually hoping that that player is going to be in your starting lineup right away. So I don't see it there, and I don't see Malawatch falling, to I don't see him being selected, I should say, to the Nets. Now is where things get interesting. They have us, as in KOC and his, I guess his co-writer, have us picking Kasper. So let's see this here. The Raps were one of the least efficient pick and roll teams in the NBA. That is true. Jonas can help in that area. I agree with this, except for the fact that we don't really necessarily have the best big to pair him with. He does need a shooting big, and we don't necessarily have that. Um, but that may distract. Yeah, he lost confidence. Um, Illinois ran a fantastic offense. I agree with that. Yeah, I like how they're putting things like the Hugo, bringing up Hugo or Yegor. I think the point is that not I would call this guy a jumbo sized, offensive orchestrator. Um, but the fact is he's a bigger offensive orchestrator for sure, and that helps a lot. Um, his entire career will float in that extra career. Yeah, that's. I think that he's someone that would help, kind of make the offense make sense again. But at the same time, I just don't know if I see. Depending on who's there at this point, he's not the highest upside swing, and so for me, if I'm the Raptors, I'm in the mindset of I want to take the highest potential guy, and it would probably not be Kasparis. They say that he's a floor general. He has good feel for the game. I mean, they use the word orchestrator just as I just used. I didn't even read this honestly. I don't want to spend too much time reading every single aspect of these things to analyze them, but just kind of give a brief overview. Because at the end of the day, if you want to check out the Ringer, they will have their stuff. I'm not going to go through the entirety of the first round. Just going to go through till the end of the lottery, and then you guys can take it from there. But I compare him to Brendan Podzinski. Okay. The one that I don't agree with is DeLon Wright. I don't think that Yakachonis plays with like a offbeat, herky-jerky style, like DeLon Wright plays with. So I don't necessarily agree with that. And Bogdan Bogdanovic, I can see this actually, and because I think, sorry, there's Boyan and there's Bogdan. I think Bogdan is the one that used to play in Atlanta until this year when he played on the Clippers. So if that is the Bogdanovic that they are saying, then I agree. That is my comp as well. So I think that this is not bad. Spencer Dinwiddie, I do not see that. Okay, so we're just gonna close that up. Oh, whoops. For whatever reason, it's not closing, so we're just going to move to the next. Carter Bryant. So the Rockets are interesting. They don't really need a guy like Carter Bryant. They can kind of just take whoever. I don't think that they want to keep their pick. I think that they want to take a swing this summer, and so it's really whoever is has the most value, and that might not be a swing pick. Um, because they're going to be including real players in any package that goes out for like Giannis or whatever. But Carter Bryant, not a bad pick here. I think that they just go BPA or whatever. They may not go for BPA. They're just going to select a guy really, and then I expect that pick to be moved. But either way, I've seen Carter Bryant moving up mock boards. In the 12 to 10 range. Some people have him going to the Raptors. I personally don't, but I understand why people do. I think it's easy to fall in love with like Jordan Walsh. Wow. I don't know if I see that, but um, I agree with the Tari Eason, Tumani Karma. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name. Marvin Williams. I have to think about the Marvin Williams comp because I have not seen Marvin Williams play in a very long time, so I have to like really think about that one. But yeah. Portland. Derek Queen is interesting because I think he fits next to Klingon, and I think long term they are going to move off Aiton. If they do move off Aiton, um, I think he only has a year or two left. I think this is actually the last year, so Aiton's an interesting guy to have on their roster as a trade chip. But Portland really is ready to go for next season. They had a solid middle of the season, and they just didn't quite. They weren't able to put it together quite early enough to really get a going. But they're a young team, and they ended up being one of the hottest teams in the NBA from January onward. So yeah, yeah. This is the way that I look at Derek Queen is that if he doesn't go early, like to Washington, he will fall and he will fall to like this place in the draft. Doesn't make sense for the Rockets to take him. So yeah, this is a destination. Boris Dio, interesting. Thad Young, I don't know about that, but yeah, I guess from just the standpoint of him passing and whatnot, Thaddeus Young had moments where he was good on defense, but like overall, he's not the best defender either. So, fair, yeah, okay, fair enough. Jermichael Green, okay, that's a little bit of a throwback for 2K fans. Sabonis, I agree with that comp as well. So yeah, I mean, this is the thing. He can kind of do a little bit of playmaking. He can be a post up to be honest, but he is not going to be able to give it on the defensive end with any regularity. He is a decent rebounder for his size. There's things to like about his game, but I think it's a tough player to sometimes build around. So I have a little bit of a bias against him. This is the one that I've seen a couple of places, and I don't agree with it. I think when you're thinking of a team like Chicago, and they already have three guards, um, and I believe all three of which, especially if you're including Giddy, um, alongside the Cody, or sorry, Kobe White and Josh Giddey, and I'm forgetting someone, Alonzo Ball. That's it. That's three guards that they've paid, three guards that they're committed to. Do they want another third guard, especially when they just paid two? Probably not. This is probably as far as Queen might fall. But I can see them going in another direction. They just got Matas. I think this is one where it's like if a Carter Bryant is there, Carter Bryant fits really nicely right at pick 12. Perfect. Right next to Matas. They get big. They get their version of Vision 6, whatever, and they're ready to go. And, if they believe that Matas is their guy, he's a guy that fits right next to him. Um, So yeah, I mean they have Bulls guards here, but yeah, Darius Garland is an interesting comp. Darius Garland is an underrated defender at times, and at other times he is not an underrated defender. But yeah, so yeah, I think if I look back, just trying to think, like even someone like Yagor could go there if they're just trying to take a random swing. although they have Reed Shepard, so that doesn't necessarily make the most sense. Point is Rockets can do whatever, and Bulls are probably not going to take Jason Richardson, although they could. I mean, if he's the best guy, if they feel that he is the best guy on the board, I think he's a really solid player, to be honest. There's things that I really like about his game, but I just don't know if I see that. We have two teams left. Jaeger Denim. Now I do see Jaeger going higher up. Just in terms of he's a lottery pick for sure. There might be someone like Rasheer Fleming who might find their way up a little bit. There might be someone else. Do I see them taking Jaeger? I don't know because they do not have their a GM picked. So depending on who is their GM, it could throw a lot of things into flux. Um, Jaeger's a swing. I could see them taking a chance on a guy like Sorber or even Danny Wolf is going next. Mainly because it really depends on the relationship that that new GM has to the feelings of re-signing Clint Capella. I don't necessarily believe in Onyeka Okongwu. I like his talent, but again, when you're dealing with a center, because some people view him as a center at 6'8", you're an undersized center. So he has a lot of two-way potential and whatnot, but they need some size, and they need a better called lob threat, if you will. I don't know if I see Jaeger being any of those things because he's more of a 6'9" point guard project type player. Um, and also they just brought in Dyson Daniels. It's a lot of mouths to feed, so I don't know if this is the right move here, especially when they just traded out a guy who had the ball in his hands a lot, and so you're gonna have a guy like this who will need the ball in his hands a lot to make it work and to get the reps. I'll do an episode on reps sometime down the road because I think it's an interesting concept to think about. I've heard other people talk about it too. But yeah, rounding it out before we get to the OKC Thunder, I'm not even going to cover them because it's just like you don't deserve to be covered for this draft. Is going to be the San Antonio Spurs. Danny Wolf. Again, the Spurs can go in a lot of different directions. Their first pick will give them some sort of indication of where they're going to go to round out their roster for the next pick, whether it be that they keep the pick or not. This pick is interesting because Danny Wolf, to me, is someone who fits in San Antonio. They just got rid of their other center in Zach Collins, and they don't. If I'm the Spurs, I want to protect Wemby as much as possible, and that's where I'm going with. And so for that reason, as I go back to me, for that reason, I think I can see that. Overall, I think it's a good mock. I'm not trying to be overly critical on people's mock drafts or whatever. I think sometimes, and I'm going to always do a thing on kind of basketball discourses. Sometimes when people don't agree, with you, people automatically go to ad hominem or you're dumb or whatever. And I think it's okay to have a difference of opinion as long as you are explaining the reasons why and focusing on reasons. So yeah, that's where I'm at. We'll see what happens. Well, this is Basketball Rewind. This is another mock draft, and we're going to go through a couple more. I believe we will probably at some point go through maybe the athletic one or CPS is always a good one to go through. So yeah, stay posted, stay tuned, like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, take care and peace.